say, come on, good vibes, come on, French too, come on, come on, come on,
let's get it on the dance floor. Guaranteed. You ain't ready. Pump it up. Full whack bar. Blow out the lens to your car with a little bit of funk and war drums of Africa. Rough, rugged terrain as Africa. I'll make the hardest rock, raw, hard work that Metallica. Banging the ball out of boundaries. Mixing it up like a pharmacy. Laying it down like an honorary scholar. Really, will you find an artist like me?
Man, your root is growing and your vibes is flowing. Got to take it slow and you see tomorrow.
Saying it's just another day.
You will see
the original Asiatic, cream of the planet Earth. Seasoning every square inch since its birth. Alpha, Omega, last in the first. Build a temple, feed my church. Understanding is a process related to wisdom. Kingdoms are built upon knowledge. This party track right here makes you holler. Number one at the top of the chart, stacking dollars. Shout to the Conquest fam. Buy back the Caribbean with the same brand. Grams exchange hands on streets, merchants trade like the Royal Warriors. Damn, this great, unconquerable as the tribe of Shabazz. If you recognize true gems, this is a class. I'm a small, humble fella who kick your ass. If you ain't on the dance floor now, come on, dance.
Man, your root is growing and your vibes is flowing. Yeah, got to take it slow and you see tomorrow.
Saying it's just another day.
You will see tomorrow. Yeah, you will see tomorrow. Oh yeah.
This is the scribe with the golden smile.
This one dedicated to the disciplined child.
Marry the beat, we walk down the aisle.
One rude boy because you're well versatile.
Chillin' with the rhythm and we killin' with the style.
Just feel this on them walk all 100 miles.
Lay it down like a floor full of tiles.
We sing now we suit with pattern and style.
Man, your root is growing and your vibes is flowing. Got to take it slow and you see tomorrow.
Saying it's just another day.
You will see tomorrow. Oh yeah, you will see tomorrow.
Just a little bit of. Just a little bit of.
Oh yeah.
Just a little bit of. Saying it's just another day. Just a little bit of.
Yeah,
Just a
you
little
will
bit of.
see. Oh yeah. Oh, you will see now. Come and dance now.
Just a little bit of.
Come and shake it now.
Just a little bit of. Just a
Do
little
that,
bit
do
of.
that,
Yeah.
do that,
Just a
oh.
little bit of.
Good evening. Good evening, good evening, good evening. How are we all doing? Welcome to another session of Friday Mind Reset Live. We have a little bit of technical issues, but bear with me a moment as I think that's okay, we're good. Okay, how are we all doing? Good evening to you all. Welcome to the final Friday Mind Reset Live, where our focus is on the theme of relationships. Good to see you all in the house. So welcome also to our Facebook family and our YouTube crew. Shawnette says, good evening to you, Shawnette. Who else do we have in the room? Laura, good evening. Beverly, and Toby. So today, as I said, is our final conversation where we're focusing on the theme of relationships. And for those of you who are new to this Friday Mind Reset Live, welcome. I'm your host, Tony D.A.D.A. And just to give you some context and background as to what these evenings are about, well, it's really based on the book that I wrote, the GPS system. How is that relevant? The GPS system, which stands for Grow Personal Success, is based on the knowledge and the understanding and the philosophy that there are 5 key pillars that we should give attention to. And so these evenings that we have, each month for 5 months, we select one of those themes and we devote the entire month to having conversations around that particular subject. And so, of course, this month, the focus has been on relationships. Next month, we'll be embarking on the journey, focusing on mindset, which I'm sure is going to be great. And we'll have lots to talk about that. But today, I wanted to end the month by focusing on young people. Why? Well, because we've spoken about relationships, male and female within the Black community. But anyone, if you know me and the work that I've been doing for the best part of 30 years, 20 of those years was dedicated solely to working with young people, from particularly those from disadvantaged and marginalized backgrounds. And I also raised 2 children as a single parent. And so I'm really passionate about young people and what is happening to them. In fact, any wise adult will know, and certainly if you're a parent, you will know that our children are our greatest teachers. Certainly that has been my experience. And so I'm always wanting to look out for our young people. And I came across something that was really disturbing for me. And so I wanted to bring it up, but even more so than just bring it up, I wanted to bring it to your attention and then invite some young people to give their take on it. So you're not hearing from me, but you're hearing from them. And I hope that you give them your attention, because we have some disturbing things going on where our young people are concerned. So what was the thing that I wanted to bring to your attention? Let me see if I can just get it up on my screen. Bear with me a moment. See if I can share my screen. I may, if I'm not able to, then I will. I think I am able to. So let's try this. So tell me, can you see my screen? Can you give me a thumbs up if you can see it? Well, basically, it was a piece talking about unemployment. Yep, you can see the screen. And so it reads, DWP unable to explain shocking inequality as unemployment among young Black people surged to 41.6% during the pandemic. Now, I don't know if you can see, because what's really shocking is that so DWP stands for Department of Work and Pensions, and they're unable, they say, to explain the reason why this has occurred. But here's the interesting sort of behind the scenes story. If you notice underneath here, it says unemployment in young white people increased from 10% to just 12.4%. Now, I don't know about you, but for me, that is shocking. And I wanted to understand why that is the case. I've got my views, but I think it would be really good for us to hear from our young people who have taken some time out and are going to be our guests this evening to give their take on it. So for those of you who are new, stay focused. For an hour, part one, we will be having the conversation that will be shared and streamed to both Facebook and YouTube. And then part two, around 9 o'clock, we will briefly have a private Q&A with our members. So if they have any, particular questions that they would like to ask. Okay, so on that note, I'm going to invite our guests to join us as we prepare to discuss and figure out why this is the case. Okay, so it just seems all of a sudden that I did say that I was having some technical issues. Bear with me a moment whilst I see why my keypad's not working. And now my screen seems to have decided that it's also not working. Bear with me a moment. I think we're back. Okay. So I want to bring up Nathaniel first of all. Yeah, here we go. So Nathaniel, many of you are familiar with Nathaniel. He is the young protege that is quite literally my right-hand man when it comes to technical matters. And then we also have a gentleman by the name of Claude, who is joining us. Hi, Natty, how you doing?
Good, how are you?
I'm really good. And so who else are we going to be inviting? I believe we have Toby in the house. And then last but not, hi, Claude, how you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing well, thank you.
Okay, all right. And Toby, how you doing?
I'm good, thank you.
Great stuff. Okay, and so last but not least, we have Beverly. So let's see. Yep, I believe Beverly's showing up. Are you there? Hi, Bev. How you doing?
Hey, evening. All good, thank you.
Great stuff. So welcome, ladies and gentlemen. I really appreciate you taking some time out this evening to give us the opportunity to have this conversation, because we really want to hear from you, your thoughts and your ideas about this shocking this shocking report that came out recently. I mean, before we go into it, I'd like, if it's okay with you, for each of you just to give us a little 2-minute who you are and what it is that you do, so we can have some context to this discussion. So who would like to go first? They normally say ladies go first, right? I see. Now it's not so sure.
Equality, so I feel like Claude can go first.
Okay, well, seeing as you're already in the flow of speaking, Toby, why don't you go first? That'll teach you.
So yeah, I'm Toby, also known as Toby Rachel. And for about 10 years or so, I've been working in journalism. Not always a straight career in journalism, but I'm pretty pleased with the career that I've had. So I'm currently a social editor at the largest social publisher in the country. And I also have a podcast called Yellow Cup Podcast. And previously I've worked for publications like Metro, Evening Standard, The Independent, the nationals that you tend to read. I've worked for those places as well. And in the past, about 6 or 5 years ago, I was also part of an organization called Dream Nation. I was the editor-in-chief of that. And Claude, who's also on this call, he is also founder of Dream Nation. So we do have a link in the past as well.
Okay, wow. Well, thank you for taking time out of your very busy schedule, clearly, to be with us this evening. So since you've got the link with Claude, well, why don't we just use that natural link? Claude, over to you, my man.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. My name is Claude Williams. I am an entrepreneur. So as Toby mentioned, I'm the founder of a company called Dream Nation, which is a personal development brand. We do quite large scale events as well as learn development programs online. and in the process right now of developing some new technology. In addition to that, I am the enterprise consultant for Birkbeck University, and I also sit on the board for the NHS Trust in Camden and Islington, as well as for Hexagon Housing.
Wow, we got some heavy hitters in the house right back now. So, Beverly, over to you.
Thank you. Good evening, everybody. I am Beverly Akufa-Addo. I'm the founder of Vibe 365. I'm a women's confidence and creativity coach. So I coach ambitious women to stand up from the crowd by living outside of their comfort zones. I currently do that myself on a challenge called 52 Weeks of Bravery, which I challenge myself every week to do something which I normally wouldn't have done. I also work at a university students union. So this has been Freshers Week, very busy. And outside of that, I love all things dance and music.
Wow. Okay. That's I'm just like, okay. Pleased to meet you, babe. Okay. All right. Thank you. And then we have our very own in-house protege, entrepreneur, man with so much skills and talents, but I'll let him do his own little intro. Nathaniel Berthier.
I'm not going to say all those titles, but hi, I am Nathaniel Berthier. And I've been working with Uncle T for the past 8 years, helping people to elevate their mindset from a poverty mindset to a prosperity mindset.
Wow. So we have a broad spectrum. So thank you for that, Nathaniel. We have a really interesting range of views, I should say. So let's just jump and dive straight in, guys. So are we all familiar with this report in the first instance? Yes?
Slightly.
Okay. So, well, as you heard me mention, the statistics were that prior to the pandemic, it was on average about 12% of young Black people were unemployed compared to 10 or thereabouts from their white counterparts. And then the pandemic came along and that jumped to 41%. That's almost 50%. And so I wanted to find out from you guys if you have any suggestions as to why it is now so hard for people, young people of color, to find employment. Who would like to offer a suggestion or theory? Toby, I see that you're almost in flow. So
I think one of the biggest factors for this is just the lack of diversity in workplaces. A lot of workplaces, especially after the resurgence of the Black Lives Matter movement, talked about diversity and, hiring and stuff like that. But what tends to happen is that, they want to hit quotas, and it's not enough to be able to hire all of the young Black people, a lot of the times, who are very, very qualified. So what happens is that, we see the statistics that say, a lot of British African students go to university and they get their bachelor's degree and they get their master's degree. So the stats do show that young Black people have high qualifications, but then they're not being employed. So I think in between that stage, the quota is not enough for the amount of people. So maybe, I won't name any names, but maybe one big company, they're like, okay, we're going to hire 5 graduates this year. So then you only have people who recently graduated, but let's say there are 20 graduates that apply and they're only hiring 5. And then that doesn't even include, Black employees.
Wow, gotcha.
Yeah. So yeah, it doesn't even include Black employees who, or potential employees who have been graduated for 5-6 years. They're not graduates anymore. So if they're only looking for graduates, it leaves out people like me who've been in their careers for a while, who may have been left redundant in the pandemic. So I think that is a reason it's increased. So institutional racism, I think it's one of the big reasons.
So you still believe firmly that institutional racism still exists today?
Yeah, and I would go on the record to definitely stand and say that institutional racism in the workplace definitely still exists.
Wow. Lord, I see you shaking your head. Is that in agreement? What's your say on this?
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with everything Toby says. And yeah, without any shadow of a doubt, institutional racism very much so does exist. I thought it was a complete joke when that report came out last year, to say that it wasn't, as well as something about the UK not being a racist country. And it's like, yeah, like a lot of people live in a very, how do I say this, unrealistic version of what the UK is. And don't get me wrong, I know there are places in the world that you can consider to be worse, in one way or another. But yeah, no, like we very much so, it is a difficult place for young people. I can say as well, it's just like when you do get into the working world, especially when you get past the graduate level, a lot of the opportunities out there are based on your network. And the reality is like, as young Black people, we don't tend to grow up with the same networks that our white or Asian counterparts have. Like I don't have an uncle that works as a partner at PwC. Do you know what I mean? Like, so I'm not going to get that hook up in that way or anything of that nature. And I think that story is very common. So for a lot of us at our age, we are, especially going into the corporate world, we are often the first ones to do it. So we're now helping out Gen Z or our friends to get into these places. And then because people aren't even there in the first place, it means that there's so many opportunities that people don't even know about in the like as potential career jobs. So I remember I was talking to Toby like a few weeks back, and yeah, she was telling me about all these different types of roles that are now available that yeah, I had no idea even existed. And I think, and I feel like I'm more connected than the average person. So then I would hate to think about the opportunities that are there that people just have no idea they can do.
Incredible. Wow. And Bev, you're shaking your head in agreement. I mean, thank you for that, Claude. This is very interesting. Bev, what's your take?
I echo those thoughts as well. And although those statistics, the numbers are high, I don't find it shocking because if you look at the number of the types of positions that a lot of Black people are employed to do, they're often junior positions which they're more qualified for. Now, when the pandemic hit and a lot of people were made redundant, which positions were going? It wasn't the top directors, the senior management, it was more junior people. And it was the same thing when it came to, oh, there's a lot of Black people who are being impacted by COVID, dying from COVID. Well, of course, because they're the ones who are more so on the ground basically, while the senior ones, the medical doctors, the senior management are in their offices protected and everything like that. So it's going to make sense that the ones where a lot of positions are more junior, well, they're taken up by more people of color and Black people. I believe it's about 6% as of 2020, where senior management roles were of Black and minority ethnic people. Out of that is 1.5% Black people. So you have to look at the disparity already that's there. And then when it goes to the recruitment side and unconscious bias, people say unconscious, a lot of it is conscious bias, but that's a whole other topic.
Is that what
It's a whole other topic. So it's from both sides, from the recruitment process, as much as they try to make it, the whole removing the bias, to looking at the positions that Black people are in, and even when they want to be able to apply for higher jobs, it's, do I see someone who looks like me that's there? Do I think it's attainable and accessible? So I think there's a lot of different factors that are included.
Wow. This is crazy. Natty, do you have a view that you want to add that may be a different perspective on?
Yes, so I haven't actually looked for a job in a while, but when I was job searching, I had to be very aggressive with it, to the point where I wouldn't just send in my CV. I'd go to this place and speak to the manager. I'm like, this is me, X, Y, and Z. And that's the only way I was able to actually get my foot in the door when looking for work. So I'm inclined to agree with everything that's been said today.
And then in that short spate that you had when you were working, I recall you saying that, the amount of work that was required of you was quite excessive, more than, should normally be expected. And I say that knowing that you're a very hard worker, but it was almost as if they knew and would convey to you subtly that, listen, if you don't do whatever we say, there's another 10 of you.
Yeah, they wanted me to be a manager on an employee's paycheck. No.
So, I mean, if this is the state of play, how comes we're still here? I say that because, 30 years ago, plus when I graduated with my degree in architecture, I went out on my year out. And in that 1 year, I could sense the climate. And I thought, you know what? No, I'm going to take charge of my destiny from here on in. And that's what I sought to do. So I'm really quite disturbed to find that so many years, like 3 decades plus on, it doesn't sound like it's got better. It sounds like, by the statistics, it's got worse. And the DWP are clueless. Do you believe that? Like, do you believe that they're clueless?
No, I would say it's very obvious, and it's almost patronizing for anyone to say, oh no, I don't know what's going on. It's kind of like the report that came out last year that Claude mentioned previously. When the report came out to say that this country is not racist, essentially, it's patronizing because, the evidence is there. So, and the evidence is there if you walk into an office and the only Black person is, maybe front of house type of role. There's nothing wrong with those roles, but you have to ask, why is there no one in leadership? And someone else has mentioned this already. If there's no one in a senior position in these workplaces, it's unlikely that they're going to hire people people of color or Black people into junior positions. So to me, it feels quite, I don't want to sound like a conspiracy theory, like, crazy, like, oh, this is a conspiracy, but it's starting to feel very deliberate because it's even becoming harder for people to get into those senior positions. I've gone through a journey where I am in a senior position at the moment, and even getting here was very hard because my peers who I started with, and I say this like, humbly, like, who maybe didn't express the same skill sets that I did, were able to go into a more senior position years ahead of me. And I've been able to move forward in my career through networking, not through, oh, we really love her skills. It was more like, oh, we really like her personality, which sometimes makes me itch because I'm far more skilled than personable. But it's because I'm good vibes that I'm hired, which would be unfair to someone who isn't as social as I am. So it wasn't, I am skilled, but sometimes I do feel, is it because I appear palatable that I was hired? And a lot of Black people don't want to admit that when they do go further in their career, but I have no shame in admitting that because it is what it is.
This is shocking. Like, you want to echo, or you're nodding your head in agreement. Is it really like this?
Yeah, no, like, I'm going to say, well, two things come to mind. Firstly, let me go off the back of what Toby just said. But yeah, without a doubt, if you will go further if you are able to present yourself in a certain way. And it's like, yeah, like, you have to play this game, unfortunately. And a lot of us were never taught the rules in the first place. So as a consequence, we started off at a disadvantage. And then in many cases, we never even figure out what those rules are at any point in our careers. So then as a result, kind of going back to what I was saying before, like, there isn't even the people ahead of you to bring you up with them because they had the same battles in the first place. So go ahead.
No, I'm just wowed by what I'm hearing. Like, this is incredible. Please continue. Yeah,
what I was going to say as well is going back to your original question around the DWP. Are they clueless? So yeah, when you was talking, I just took a moment just to do a little bit of like insider to make sure I fully understood what their purpose is. And like, yeah, the definition for, or the reason for it is they're there to be focused on welfare, pensions, and child maintenance policies. So I guess, like, in terms of the scope of the problem of getting young Black people into roles or into jobs, that's not their responsibility. Like, they fall into it once we are not in them, would need to get the benefits of like welfare. So I think really where we need to be looking and pointing the finger at for responsibility is not so much the government, but more the employers. So I would say it's like, why aren't we talking to some of the bigger employers, like talking to the CEOs, the recruitment teams, the HR departments, and figuring out what's going on? And I can tell you, like, from the board roles that I sit on, like, this is a conversation that does come up, but whether or not like all organizations are having these conversations in a meaningful way and being honest with themselves, that's a different story. Because it's a difficult problem to solve, because a lot of the companies don't know how to fix this issue, whether it's pipeline, whether it's trying to actually reach people, whether it's people even applying for the jobs in the first place. Like, it is a complicated issue, but at the same time, very few people are actually trying to do anything about it in the first place.
Well, and why should they? If they've got excess supply of people wanting and fighting for one position, why should they really concern themselves with people from,
Yeah. And I'll say just on that point, I think, to be honest with you, if we take this back even almost a step further back from all of this, like, yeah, to your point, like, well, people aren't incentivized to fix this problem right now. And I think that's because in many ways, like, the capitalist system that we live in wasn't designed to help everybody. It's not even designed to help like the working class altogether. And when I say working class, I don't mean I don't mean as in like the definition that we normally use. I mean anyone that doesn't own the business. Like, capitalism wasn't set out for you. So that's like what 98% of humanity at the end of the day. So yeah, it's unless it becomes a problem that impacts their bottom line, then this is not going to be resolved.
Right. Okay. So we've identified clearly what the problem is. Beverly, did you want to add something before I want to turn this around, because I'm not feeling great right about now, and I want to turn this around. But is there something that you wanted to add to the conversation, Beverly?
It was just going to be about where the power lies. And I know that a lot of companies, now that they've realized, like, oh, this is a problem now, what are we going to do? Let's get some Black colleagues to have their networks here, or to have a staff network there and stuff like that. How are you going to say to, let's say, coordinators or entry-level people, go here and have your networks, but then actually we're not going to have that action? You need to ensure that those people are empowered. And how do you have that power? By being able to be a trustee or being senior management, being a director. There is no point in I think it serves some sort of purpose, but it doesn't serve a truly transformational purpose when you do those things. It's trying to distract away from the issue and not being able to have that sustainable approach to it.
Okay. Wow. All right, I hear you. So I'm going to throw some things into the mix here, just to really broaden the conversation. So we've identified that, employers are part of, the issue. Could it possibly also be that parents are part of the problem too? What do I mean by that? What I mean by that is, could it be the fact that many parents, and I can speak from the Nigerian perspective, because that one I know very well, that they have this blinkered view that their children must become a lawyer or a doctor or an architect, and there's no conversation. It's a do or die scenario. Because in a way, they might actually be complicit to this process that has been engineered, whereby, yes, they go and get the degree, but when they come out, now they're frustrated because they can't get a job. Could this be something that we could bring into the mix? Do you agree, disagree? Toby, your father's not watching, is he?
No.
Okay. To make sure.
Yeah, no, I can speak freely. That's a heavy question, and I think it's also a triggering question, because it's like, I've lived through that. So for me, eventually, when I did end up in university, I did study a course quite aligned to what I'm doing now in media, but I was expected to study something science-based, maybe psychology. And when I went to, even when I was in sixth form, I I signed up for biology A level. A lot of my friends probably don't even know this. They're like, you're not a science person, but I did that because I was told to do it because, you know, you need biology to get into uni. And I went into that class. The first 5 minutes, I was like, I definitely do not belong here. And I just walked out of the class and I went to the admission people and I was like, I want to change my course. And I told my parents like 3 weeks later when it was too late for me to change back. And they were fuming. They went into my sixth form. They were like, why did you change our child's course without our permission? She's going to
Wow.
be a psychologist. And I was like, oh, so all of that fuss, I was like, oh my God, I'm in trouble. My life is over. You know, when you're young, you're just
Yeah,
like,
you don't
forever the
know.
world and I'm going to do what they say. So even though I changed my biology class to English and media, I then was like, okay, to my parents, fine, I'll be a psychologist. For me, this is how I know God is real, because one day they just like woke up and were like, you're just like really good at this media and English thing. We've got this wild idea. Why don't you do journalism? I was like, but this is what I was begging you guys to let me do. So
Wow.
I had, for me, the intervention came quite early because I went on to uni to do media. However, I went through that again when now they expected me to go into a media career like very
Right. So,
but I obviously went down the entrepreneurial side and I did Dream Nation, and there was a lot of backlash on with that because they were like, no, you have to work for a big company, not be essentially self-employed and start
right.
your own
Right.
company. So I did that, and ironically they saw the success of Dream Nation and they kind of acted like it was their idea in the first place. Now they walk around telling all other African parents, let your children do whatever they want to do and all of
Oh,
that.
oh, really? Look
Yeah,
at that.
now.
Eh? Can you
And
imagine?
yeah, and it's funny because my youngest sister, she actually has a PhD in science, but that's her choice. They didn't like, she's very passionate about this. She's got her own company encouraging Black women scientists. But I went through that back and forth with education wise and then, you know, with the entrepreneurial side, because I actually quit the job that I had to then go on to do Dream Nation, which was like a big like scenario. It was like very ugly and whatever. But I think me going through that have made my parents very liberal, and just any little cousin I have, like I have a cousin that wants to be a PT, I have cousins that want to be actors and dancers, and they're like really supportive of that. So I've seen the whole 360, but I do feel that it added far too many obstacles in my way. Yes, I am where I am now, but it was far too dramatic. And
Yeah.
I know that other people don't have the same outcome that I did. They went into being a lawyer, they went into, you know, going being a paralegal, going to law school, getting like years of maybe studying to be a doctor, and then ending up there and they're like, actually, I
I'm not
want to
happy.
I want to start my own bread business, or, you know, but when they hear of Dangote and people that have their own businesses, they're like, oh, you know, I wish my child was a billionaire. But you have to kind of let us make our own decisions. It doesn't have to be traditional lawyer, doctor, psychologist, you know. So that long ramble is for me to say, yes, I think it does impact a lot of people because they end up in careers that they don't want to be in, or there are too many steps, unnecessary steps that happen in their journey.
Bev, I see you nodding your head in agreement. What would you like to add to the conversation?
Yeah, I totally agree with Toby in terms of how it is part of the problem. I think there are many factors part of the issue anyway, but I think I understand where it comes from, and I
Tell me,
understand.
please, I beg. Eh? Where does it come from? Eh?
I think it comes from what they are shown to be as success. Now, everyone has their own different perception of what success is, and I think for a lot of African parents, they're painted a picture of success to be things like lawyers, doctors. This is what's high paying. This is where you've got opportunity. And when you're shown something or fed that this is the route to go and this is where you can succeed at, that's where it comes from, the pressures and pushing. Not saying that it's okay to do that, but if they've had that down to them and then they want their children to also go into doing that, that's where I see it stemming from.
Yeah, but then if that is the case, then what is being played out here is a form of mental slavery.
I agree.
In the sense that, you know, somewhere they got the notion, and let's be frank, because this is an open conversation. When we are talking about success for many families from the Black perspective, we're not talking about success, we're talking about money. Like, yeah, let's be real, there's a distinction. And that's why my book is called Grow Personal Success. And personal success is down to the individual. The parents are really there to play a supportive role to help the young person identify the skills, the talents, the abilities that they possess, and figure out how to package that in such a way that you can offer it as a gift to the world and get paid for it. That's what personal success is. But it seems to me, and I'm saying this as a parent because this is how I raised both my children, but I was forever being under scrutiny and backlash. You know, I taught my son about financial literacy when he was about 5, and I was horrified at the way people were saying, what are you doing? Don't do this. When my daughter wanted to do music, oh my God. Both families, I was the only person that was supporting. So the point I'm making is it just a case of that we are still brainwashed to say that this is what is success? And that vision is not even our own. It has been passed down or infused into our minds by outside forces, but then it's a complete setup.
I completely agree. And that's what I mean when it's talking about this is what they've been fed into what success is and different people having their perception of success. So if it for them, it was money or status or what it may have been. And I think that the more we have these conversations with parents and being able to have those, you know, understanding why you're having a conversation, not just to talk, but for each party to listen and understand. And I know it's not always easy. For myself, I'm open about it. I've gone through family therapy because there are things that in our family we just couldn't talk about. We had to do that and go through the counseling. And not all people will be open to that, right? So it's kind of like being able to have those conversations so that there's more understanding around it. And as difficult as it may be, trying to have more discourse. And I think, as Toby said, for example, her parents are now talking to other parents as well about various different avenues that their children can take.
Yeah, well, listen, please, if you have anybody, I am here. Let them know. Share the video that I am here because I went through the same thing. I mean, I made myself intentionally homeless at the age of 18, partly due to those kind of pressures. Now, that's crazy. Like, why would you put yourself in danger like that? And I love my parents. They did the best that they could. But it's one of the reasons why I'm wanting this conversation. It's one of the reasons why I wrote my book, to be able to show and demonstrate that when you support young people and allow them to discover and work things out for themselves, some of them can achieve success that the parents couldn't even have dreamed of. But you stifle that by you getting in the way. So there is definitely something here that needs to be looked at. Now, again, we are talking about employment, but the reason why I bring that into the conversation is because we have skills, gifts, talents, and abilities. And I find it interesting how little support is given to the whole space of entrepreneurship. So I'm glad to hear that we can add this to the conversation, because should it be that everyone is just focused on getting a job and becoming a lawyer, doctor, or?
Can I just touch on a point before you move on?
Yeah.
Just going on the back of what Claude said about not having someone further down the line to help us as young people. From my experience, there are not many few that you are correct. And the few that do try to guide often do it through fear. So they would say, have your hair low because the police will look at you a certain way, or not have your beard too big because X, Y, and Z would happen. And over time, I've realized that if you're going to go into a corporate workplace as a black male, you need to look a certain way. You need to have a certain cut. You need to look that way all the time.
Oh, wow.
But because it was said to me and it felt like I'm meant to be fearful, I'm like, no, I want to grow my hair. So, but, yeah, That's what I wanted to touch
So
on.
then what I'm hearing you say, that even those who do get through the door into the job market, they're actually having to be almost caricatures of their true identity, because they're not really free to express who they are, because they're always trying to ensure that they look that certain way, which is not spoken about explicitly, but you have to kind of just figure out and conform. But then if you're conforming, then you have no sense of power, because you're already conforming.
Yeah.
Claude, what's your thoughts and view?
Like I think before I touched on the entrepreneurship side of things, like on your last question, there's a few things that kind of came to mind.
Yeah.
And yeah, like everything that Toby and Beverly were saying, I agree with, but at the same time, I actually don't blame parents, in all honesty. And the reason
we're not blaming. No, not blaming.
I know. But the reason why I say that is because I feel like in most of their cases, they did the best with the information, the resources that they had available to them.
Yeah.
And yeah, like, yeah, because to be honest with you, being a doctor is a good thing, being a lawyer is a good thing, being an engineer is a good thing.
If you want it.
And if you want it. But at the same time, like, I also try to wind back a little further. And there's a lot of the things that for example, that I can go ahead and pursue today. Like if I wanted to become like a professional gamer, I can literally become a millionaire of that. But we wind that like X number of years back, maybe when they were growing up, then those weren't options. And if you wanted to have financial success, like there were certain pathways to get there. And so I think they were just trying to carve out the safest route for their children.
100%. I totally agree. But that's why we're having the conversation, in the sense that there are careers that don't even have any name right now that are coming down the track.
Yeah.
And if we're saying to our young people, because it's a generational thing, and if we are having this brainwashing going on, then the parents of young children today will be saying, this is the job for you. But then you're just repeating the same thing, because there's going to be so much more opportunities. Yeah. How about empowering your children in such a way that you can be confident that no matter where they go on the planet, as did mine, what you put inside them is enough to make them stand out.
Yeah, and I agree. And what I was going to say, and to finish off my point, was that, yeah, like things have very much so changed now. And I do think it is important that we do consider passion. But then also I think it's important that we do consider needs as well, because I've seen enough as a coach that honestly, passion isn't always enough to pay the bills. So like we do need to take a practical approach to it. Like as you said, there are plenty of roles that exist today that didn't exist 5 years ago, and they're going to be even more in the future that we have no idea what they are. Absolutely. So equipping young people with the universal skill sets which they can take to different industries is going to be one of the things that's going to play a huge part of that. But I also feel like us as like a slightly further ahead generation, slightly older, it's important for us to also help nudge them in directions where we can see trends are coming right now. So like, for example, we know that, yeah, like technology is only going to continue to become a bigger thing, AI, data, things of that nature. And if a child does show some interest in that and passion for it, then it's not a bad thing to nudge them in that direction. Not necessarily to force them to be like, no, you're going to be a data scientist. But
because it looks like some parents are just trying to plan for their pension.
Yeah. So I think if we want to have like huge levels of success, so like, yeah, in terms of people making a significant amount of money, I think there's a combination we need to talk about of like, what are the industry trends, what are the needs, what are your passions, and what are you good at? And I think when we can find a balance between those 4 areas, that's when someone can have like both a fulfilling career as well as one that pays them very well at the same time.
Yeah.
And I think the point that you're saying about entrepreneurship, like obviously that's where my heart is. I've been an entrepreneur since I was 18. It's like, it matters to me. But I will also say I also very much so not a believer that it's for everybody.
Absolutely.
And I think it's important that everybody develops entrepreneurial skill sets and mindsets, and that they know that it's an option for them as a career. But I know, especially kind of in like my age bracket, like there's kind of a movement of like, yeah, 9 to 5 is a waste of your time sort of thing. Like, I don't stand by that. Like for some people, it's the right choice. For other people, it's not. And for some people, do both. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think it really comes down to figuring out where are you going to win and then play that game and forget what everyone else is saying, like do what works for you.
And so that brings us back into that space of defining what personal success is. And once you define that, then you can put your passion, your skills, your gifts towards nurturing and then growing that personal vision of success. So you see why I wrote the book now. Yes. Plug, plug. Toby, any comments that you want to add to this? I mean, this is a great conversation. I hope that our listeners and viewers are learning, because it's not very often that we get to hear from bright young people like yourself and get to understand some of the struggles and challenges, because this can be really psychologically. I mean, you know, the other thing that we haven't put into the mix, unlike my day, and I'm going to say this, but please don't hate, when I was paid to go and get my degree, you guys are getting like 30, 40, 50,000 pounds worth of debt as well. And then you go out and you can't get the job. I mean, psychologically, that's a lot of pressure.
Yeah.
And don't have that conversation about that.
Yeah, I think, you know, like unemployment is difficult all round, and there is a lot of pressure. And a lot of the times the pressure comes from an older generation who were able to go to uni and get jobs under very different circumstances, as you just mentioned. So a lot of the times the pressure, like when you make maybe decisions to become an entrepreneur or you quit your job, you know, like I've quit my job on twice in my life into just straight unemployment, like, and people you like, you know, why did you make that choice? And I had specific reasons for why I made those choices, because I wanted to change things in my career, and I just had to make those bold steps to be able, and it's worked out, you know, on both occasions for me. So most recently, when I left the job in 2019, I left a job that everybody just probably thought I was crazy for leaving that job. It was a very good publication, but, you know, I wanted to leave that job for a while because I just felt like the circumstances weren't right for me. And I felt like maybe I had gained what I needed to gain from there, and I wanted to take different steps in my career, but it was really difficult to do while still there. So I did leave that job, but that made me so hungry when I essentially just, you know, I put myself into becoming a freelancer. So I took the skills I had and I started networking. And in that year that I quit my job until a year from today, until 2020, I, you know, was always, every month I had to look for work. I had to make money every month. And I also had to do that in the pandemic. But whilst, you know, the pandemic got quite heated and there was a lack of work for me as a freelancer, I decided to go back into 9 to 5. And my point really is that it's actually okay to make different decisions depending on what season you're in. So once you've quit, you know, a job, and maybe you've gone freelance or you've gone into self-employment, it's okay to take up a job afterwards. And, you know, that has been my story so far. And in my current job, which is a 9 to 5, I made ensure that when I went back into 9 to 5, and I went back into 9 to 5 for very financial reasons, for not because I wasn't necessarily making money as a freelancer, but, you know, there's certain things that you want to achieve in your life. Sometimes they kind of need you to have a job. The bank is asking for you to have, you know, permanent work. So I said, oh, is that how we're playing the game? Fine. I'll go and get a 9 to 5, but I'll get a 9 to 5 that I can enjoy, that I can do, and that I can do while still doing my other things. So that's essentially what I've done. And I said to myself, in that 9 to 5, I have to get a promotion. I'm going to work so hard, and I'm going to ensure that I do everything I can to get promoted. And by God's grace and God's grace only, like that, I'm on the journey into going into a promotion now. So I think it's okay to make plans and to make goals for yourself. And I sometimes, yeah, like people in my age might feel pressure from an older generation, or maybe I'm a millennial, so maybe the Gen Z feel more pressure. But I would say, like, for anyone watching, wherever you're watching, like, make the decision that's right for you, even if it means like 2 or 3 months of maybe a struggle with the coins. Like, just make the decision that's right for you and take a leap of faith. I think it always works out for people when they make decisions for themselves. I don't think you can be disappointed.
Wow, I love that. And coming from a woman who I can tell you are definitely a woman of faith. So, because faith is really quite a big factor in the decisions that we make in the world today. And I find that many adults are not able to communicate that to young people, like how you can actually work your faith. It says in the good book, faith without works is redundant. So it really does require all of that. Thanks for sharing that. Beverly, you wanted to add something, I could feel.
Yeah, I think it's a lot to know. We were talking about today about relationships with parents, and I just think also relationships with ourselves. For example, this conversation that we're able to have today, I think is like really refreshing when you can do. There's a lot of things that we may not speak about, and as family, as friends, and I think the more we're more open around things like work, entrepreneurship, money, mortgages, whatever it might be, just being able to have those conversations with people that you trust, and having those conversations where you're listening to understand, but you can also build your connections and connect a lot more. So I think the conversation around networks has been mentioned a lot of the time, and just like building those, not in a self-serving way just so that you can get somewhere, but just out of genuine authenticity as well. And I think that it goes a long way for everybody. And I think it also helps with, we're never going to escape pressures. There's going to be different pressures of life, but being able to have like-minded people, having a strong community, and also having that strength within yourself is going to be able to help you decide how you respond to those pressures that you will face at different levels.
Absolutely, and I concur 100%. And it's why, in addition to talking about growing personal success, for me, it's all about understanding, particularly, it's my view, my personal view, having been mentored by a spiritual mentor for 38 years, that dynamic, that spiritual element of being able to know yourself, mind, body, soul, spirit, is so important because it gives you a grounding to be able to know how to navigate life. My mentor said to me once, any personal development that does not include spirituality is incomplete. And I totally agree, because that's your essence. That's your being. And I think, as you said, Beverly, the more that we can be honest in our families, in our settings, and have that spirit of love, to be able to sit down with your children and have them say things that sometimes you don't understand, or you're thinking, what is wrong with you? But if the spirit of love is there, then you will go that extra mile. You'll make that effort. It will be hard, but it would be worth it. And so through this conversation, I hope that people will just take some time out, whether you're a young person or, a parent or an adult, and let's bring the love factor back into the equation, because that is the thing that will allow us, as you said, Beverly, to listen to understand, as opposed to listen to respond, as many in Nigerian households, you haven't even finished your sentence. The answer is coming back at you. No. This is what I want you to do. That can't work. And at least listening to you guys, I'm believing that it's taken some time, but finally there is some changes occurring in our homes. Claude, did you want to add something?
I think on this occasion, I think between all the other speakers and yourself, I think at least on this question or this point, it's been covered. And our relationships between, I think, parents and children, as long as we keep on improving that, then as a community, we're all going to move significantly further forward. And I do think potentially there needs to be a little bit more of a focus and emphasis on that. I think
a little bit more emphasis on what exactly?
On that, developing those relationships, like that trust, that communication, that love, that understanding between the generations. I think that'll go a long way.
Wow, I love that.
And I think alongside that, what I've always learned when it comes to, I guess, your ability to have healthy relationships with other people, in 9.5 times out of 10, it often starts with our relationship with ourselves. And I think my generation, I think we have a much better understanding of that, and we're doing a lot of work into that. But what I really would wish would happen more is that the generations above us would do the same. And I think everybody would benefit as a result.
Oh, you actually went there, Claude. Wow, that's Well, this is why there's probably a conversation for you and I to have, because I'm working with that generation who have done things a certain way for decades, and then looking at their children literally come by and overtake them in many respects, and realize that actually I need to check out what's going on. Because for many adults, we have been carrying things for decades that we haven't healed from. And I think that's the point you're making. And unfortunately, that now becomes projected onto our children. And it wasn't easy, in the 60s and 70s, as you all know, with the Windrush generation and all things like that. But I think the point that you've made, Claude, I want to echo, because I truly believe, and it's the reason why, I have a young Natty by my side, because I'm actually demonstrating and proving that when we can overcome that disconnect and focus on connecting, then we win together. There's things that I'm able to impart through way of experience, knowledge, wisdom to Natty that I think, and you can repeat this, Natty, because I can't remember exactly what you said, but it was something along the lines that when I was young, I could fail and get back up. I start a degree, doesn't work out, they'll pay me to do another degree. But where young people are concerned today, you can't afford to fail like that. It will cost you seriously. And so having an adult around you, and I'll give it over to you in a moment, but having an adult around you will enable you to take on board different perspectives that you might not have had. Equally, me having Natty around, some of the technical stuff that I have got no clue about. And this is how we win together. Natty, over to you.
Yeah, I believe the analogy I use for us growing up in this generation is, if you're going in the wrong direction, it's like a car crash happening 10 times faster. So, like, any mistake that I make could be detrimental for me.
Yeah, it's like seriously detrimental to the point that it might be hard to come back from that and still be, 100% intact, mind, body, and soul.
Yeah. So I also wanted to echo a point off the back of what Toby said when she spoke about activating your faith and taking that leap. That really hit home for me, because I had to leave my family's home to find myself. And then from leaving my family home at 19, 20 to find myself, I also dropped out of uni of the computer science course that they wanted me to do.
Yeah, we struggled with that one a little bit. Me and him, we were fighting a little bit, because I helped to support him to get into uni. But when he turned around and made a strong case to say, look, I'm learning more with you than I am, at uni, it was hard. I mean, here he was at 20, 21, and you were known by millionaires who knew you and respected your work ethic. And, as we were saying earlier on, it is about network. So, you can go to uni and get a degree, but then you don't know anyone who can help you or guide you. Like, from the age of 21, and there's a confidence that comes with that, and have known that if you needed to raise 10, 20, 30, 40, 50,000 pounds investment, if you needed to, because you had a strong idea, you had some ideas of where to go, right?
Yeah.
And that's a pretty solid position to be in.
Yeah. So what I would say is, if you're going to take that leap, ensure that you're doing it for the right reasons. And if you're going to take the leap, I would recommend having a mentor in your corner, because it's always good to have someone that like, and trust. The words that you like to say, Uncle. Know, like, and trust in your corner that you can go to, because that is beyond priceless.
Isn't it? And I actually know of students who've dropped out of uni and taken their 1 year's money and literally paid £10,000 to a mentor. And in that year, they've surpassed what some of their students were doing, at uni. So there were different strategies. So thank you for sharing that, Natty. I think on that note, we'll round up for our guests. I'd like to have a closing comment from each of you. Natty's offered his. What would you like to say as a parting comment, Toby, to our guests on Facebook and YouTube?
I'll say my parting comment really is, take a leap of faith, especially in these like trying times where you see these reports that say unemployment is very high. Just still, in whatever you need to do, take a leap of faith. Feel like that was like 5 closing comments, but yeah, that's
Yeah, no, it's good. It's great. And Claude, my brother, yourself, what's your comment?
Yeah, like just kind of continuing from Toby, definitely take a leap of faith without a doubt. But yeah, be practical in your pursuit of your dreams. So yeah, first as well, make sure you can pay your bills. And then once you have those resources, then you can make that investment in yourself. And when you invest in yourself, then yeah, then you can go on to accomplish whatever you need to do.
Wow, practical ideas and suggestions from the man. Thank you. And Beverly, last but not least.
Mine would just be to build yourself up daily, whether it's mindset audios, what you're feeding yourself spiritually, mentally, and emotionally. Build yourself up daily, even if it's like 5 minutes of meditation, visualization, add into it. Keep on doing it, even if you don't think that it's gonna, you're not feeling it, but knowing that every brick you lay for that foundation is strengthening you up. You're able to build yourself up from the inside, no matter how small you might perceive something, it's not small at all. So that would be mine.
Well, thank you very much for that. And thank you all for your comments. And I'd like to just pick up on what Beverly has said. Certainly where we were talking about the challenges for young Black people in this country, one of the things that we haven't touched on that I'd like to just close is on the subject of personal development, because there are very few people who have a 10, 15, 20-year track record of working and supporting people from our community. So again, that's a slight disadvantage. I'm pleased to be able to say that I've been in this space for nearly 30 years, and I can say to you categorically that there are principles that you can employ, as you said, Beverly, that when you understand, embrace, and begin to do the work and have people in your corner that understand the challenges that are unique to young people of color in this country, then as Natty has found, I'm so impressed because he demonstrates what can be achieved. Someone coming to my door at 17 and me having to say, you are unemployable. It was that bad, to a point where now, he is my right-hand man in many respects. And without a shadow of a doubt, I know by the time he hits 30, he's going to be in a very solid position because he has grown himself. So investing in yourself is definitely something that is important. I'd like to say thank you all. And I'd like to say thank you to all of our guests, and on whether you're on YouTube or Facebook, I hope you have found this really useful and enjoyable. Next week, we are going to be focusing in the month of October. Yes, October is here already. We're going to be talking, I believe, around mindset and all things related to that. You see, the truth being that the thoughts that you have are the quality of the thoughts that you have. And many people don't actually know the quality of thoughts. There are different kinds of thoughts. The quality of your thoughts will determine your life. Spiritual law, hands down, undisputable. So what are the qualities of your thoughts? Questions like that we'll be treating and answering. So look forward to seeing you same time, same place. But for now, I'm going to stop the live stream and we're going to carry on the conversation for a few more minutes with our guests.